If you want to hit big lifts in the snatch and clean and jerk, you need to have a big back. Your back is the first line of defense when it comes to pulling heavy weights off the floor, maintaining positions during the pull, and supporting heavy weight overhead. Show me a lifter with a weak back, and I'll show you a weak lifter. In this video, I'm going to break down the top 7 lifts to increase your back size and strength so you can improve your technique, look jacked, and set PRs. Let's dive in. The first lift to build a big back for weightlifting is the Snatch Grip RDL. Now, this exercise is first and foremost a hamstring exercise, but as weightlifters, we're not in the business of isolation. So while this exercise's primary focus is developing strong hamstrings and glutes, its secondary benefit is strengthening your back from ass to ears, and this lift is going to be great for helping you hold position and stay over the bar as you pass the knee. So if that's something you struggle with, give this lift a try. Set up with your normal snatch grip and stance, but if you want to bias the hamstrings a little bit more, you can bring your feet in a little bit narrower and point your toes more forward. But if you're okay with prioritizing your back over your hamstrings, then we can keep our toes turned out a little bit. Now, the most important thing to get the most out of this for your back is to keep your eyes and head up the entire time as you push your hips back. This helps you work your entire back as opposed to tucking the chin and keeping a more neutral spine, which will help bias your hamstrings more. When you do this exercise, your lower back will have to work hard to maintain position, as well as your upper back, to prevent you from slouching into a lazy rounded position, which in Olympic weightlifting is not going to help improve your technique at all. Try these out for 3 to 5 sets of 6 to 10 reps as heavy as possible, but start out on week 1 with lighter weight than you think you should have, because these are a humbling exercise. If you go too heavy, you might be stuck with a case of the weightlifter waddle as you're walking around, because your legs will be pretty sore along with your back. The second back exercise you need to do for Olympic weightlifting is the pullover. Arnold used to say that the pullover was his favorite exercise for rib cage expansion. And while I don't know that this exercise is going to make your rib cage any bigger, it will blow up your back and even a little bit of your chest. Plus, this exercise might be the most specific to the Olympic lifts. If you have trouble keeping the bar close to the body or sweeping the bar back in the pull, this exercise trains the exact same muscle groups that help you do that. You can do this exercise with a ton of different tools. Curl bars, bands, cables, and dumbbells are all effective tools, and the cable is my favorite way to do this, but most weightlifting gyms don't have a cable machine, so we're gonna go over it with a dumbbell. So to start, grab the dumbbell by the bell, making a cup with your hands, with the dumbbell handle sitting in the middle between the two. Now, we wanna have a fixed back position and arm position, so we shouldn't be changing at our hips or changing at our arms throughout the movement. I like to start with just a arched back instead of trying to keep my abs engaged the whole time. Reach back as far as you can go and bring it back up. Now, we want to make sure that we're going as slow as possible on the way down, especially towards the end of the movement, as that's what builds the most muscle. Now, when some people do this exercise, they say that they feel more triceps. That's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're not changing your elbow position during the movement. If we start with a slight bend and we keep that same slight bend, you might feel your triceps a little bit because the lat will go all the way up into here, right? So you may be getting a little bit of a tricep stretch as you do it. And if that's why you feel your triceps, that's okay. But if we're reaching back and then bending the elbows and then kicking the elbows and bringing back up, we're doing a skull crusher, we're not doing a pullover. So keep the elbows in a fixed position, whether that's bent or straight, doesn't really matter, but straight will force you to use lighter weights, where a slight bend will allow you to use heavier weights. Pullover is also a variation of one of my favorite front rack mobility exercises. And if you need help improving your front rack mobility, then make sure to check out my free Mobility 101 guide linked in the description below. Try pullovers 1 to 2 times a week for 3 to 5 sets of 6 to 12 reps with as heavy a weight as possible. Now, be careful with when you place this exercise in your week of training. If you suffer from poor overhead mobility, especially in the jerk, then I would highly recommend doing these on the same day after your jerks are done, not the day before a heavy or important jerk portion of the workout. The third lift, if you want to get a big back for weightlifting, is the dumbbell row. The dumbbell row is widely accepted as one of the best back exercises by strongmen, bodybuilders, and powerlifters, and weightlifters are no exception to this. Although the dumbbell row doesn't have any specific technique carryover like the pullover does, it still takes the lat through a full range of motion, which is the #1 goal when trying to build muscle. To perform the dumbbell row, I like to use a bench for knee and hand support. So I'm going to place my knee on the back of the bench, my hand on the front of the bench, and then I'm going to take the leg on the same side as the arm that's working and scoot it as far back as possible to get it out of the way. Then from here, we grab the dumbbell in the middle or top of the handle, but not towards the bottom so that it's hanging like this. From here, we reach the shoulder forward for a big stretch, row the dumbbell back towards our hip and not straight up like this. Rowing the dumbbell straight up like this is just going to fatigue your arms and not build as much of a lat. Imagine trying to drive your elbow into your back pocket. Now the other thing that we need to keep in mind here is that we don't need to get our elbow super far behind the back. Just level with the torso is fine as long as we get a big stretch here. One thing that you can do to make sure that you're not limiting your back growth by your grip strength is using a weightlifting strap. Take the strap, wrap it around, and hold by this strap, and you'll not be limited by your grip strength, but by your actual back strength. If you're new to weightlifting, you probably need to develop some grip strength. So I would recommend doing the majority of your sets without straps. But if you want to do a sort of top set, drop set approach, where you push a heavy top set of dumbbell rows with the straps and then do your drop sets without, that would be a great idea. The fourth lift weightlifters need to do to build a big, strong back for weightlifting is the Snatch Grip Upright Row. One of the best parts about Olympic weightlifting, especially for beginners, new lifters, new people to the gym, is that it's one of the easiest ways to see muscle growth in the traps really quickly. If you're a beginner, you're likely following some sort of progression where you're snatching and cleaning from the hip, like we do in my free beginner program, Weightlifting 101, which I'll link down in the description below. In the first 1 or 2 sessions, you'll find your traps are pretty sore. And after the first week or 2, you'll actually start to see your traps growing faster than any other muscle group. This is great for beginners, but as you begin to get more advanced, you still want to continue to build a strong upper back and traps. Weightlifting will do a lot of the work there, but we can continue to build this by using the Snatch Grip Upright Row. Stance on this doesn't really matter. Grip should be in the same position that you do your snatches at. Now, you don't need to use your hook grip. You can just do a normal full grip, or you can use straps if you don't want to be limited by your grip here. All we're going to do is have a slight lean forward at the hips, swing the bar away slightly, and then row the bar up and back into you. This is not a technique exercise, so we don't need to be keeping the bar as close to the body as possible. We want to let the bar get a little bit away from us before we pull it back in to maximize upper back and trap growth. Now, some people may experience some shoulder discomfort in this movement. The main reason for that is if the elbows are moving back behind the shoulder too early. So the movement shouldn't look like this, it should look like this. So let that bar get away from you a little bit. You can use a little bit of body English if you need to, but try and keep it strict for the first couple of reps in your set of about 10 to 15. And then in the last couple, we can get a little bit more kip into the movement. Try these out 1 to 3 times a week for 3 to 5 sets of 10 to 15 reps with lighter weight than you think you will need. The fifth lift weightlifters need to do if you want to build a strong back, especially a strong lower back, is the GHD Hip Extension. When non-weightlifters think of back day, they typically think of lat pull downs, pull-ups, dumbbell rows. All those are great for building an upper back. But in weightlifting, we also need to have a strong lower back. And there's probably no better tool for it than the GHD. Even though it's mostly used for getting out of breath and getting your abs sore by CrossFitters, it's actually a great tool for building a strong posterior chain. To perform the exercise, set the pads up so that your hips are completely off of the pad. We're going to reach down and grab a dumbbell and hold it against the chest as you do your extensions. Now, when you do this exercise, we try and get a full range of motion down and get our shoulders back to above the hips is ideal, but as you start to get more fatigued, level with the hips is okay. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can do this exercise. You can hold the dumbbell against your chest. You can hold it behind your head. One thing that you can do to really spice it up is to add a row into the movement as a more dynamic back exercise where we'll extend up and pull. Like that. Is it going to be as effective for building an upper back as just a normal dumbbell row? No, but it is a great exercise and it's a great way to mix things up from what you're normally used to. Give back extensions a try for 3 to 5 sets of 10 reps with as heavy a weight as possible, but build up to it. This is a tough exercise, especially if you've never trained or isolated your lower back before. Now, all of these exercises that we've covered so far have one major flaw. They can't be loaded very heavy. The following 2 exercises are the most important for building a strong back for weightlifting and should be a staple in your training year-round. The 6th exercise to build a strong back for weightlifting, especially for the clean, is the clean pull. It's important to remember that we're training all of these back exercises for one goal: to lift heavier weights. If you want to lift big weights, you have to have big weights on the bar, and the clean pull is one exercise that allows you to lift the heaviest possible weight in weightlifting. So to perform, set up exactly like you would for a clean. Hold your back position strong and imagine pushing down into the ground with your legs while keeping your back flat, and extend up. Now, there's 2 things that you can do to really crank the back on this exercise up to 11. First is to perform the clean pull with a slow eccentric, lowering it down exactly as you would for a normal clean before you touch the ground. And we can do the exact same thing, adding in a floating clean pull where we lower it down slow, then squat, and right before we touch the ground, pause for a second before completing the movement again. The slow eccentric makes this really challenging, but doing it with a floating slow eccentric is even harder. Slow eccentric is a great way to work the lower back and the legs, but the floating clean pull is a great way to feel how your legs and back work together to create perfect technique and launch the bar. Building a strong clean pull is a great way to not only build strength for the clean, but also confidence in your pull. Try these out at least once a week for 3 to 5 sets of 2 to 5 reps between 85 to 115%. The 7th and possibly best exercise for building a strong back for weightlifting is the pause squat. Now, I know what you're thinking. A squat, isn't that what's supposed to build strong legs for weightlifting? And it will. It's going to build strong legs for weightlifting. But by pausing, especially with heavier weights, we have to work hard to maintain our back position and not get tipped over, where we'll have to save the lift with our back, which makes it a lot harder. If you've ever heard of the good morning squat or the good morning squat fail, that is what we're trying to prevent. Pause squats are a great way to work on this and build strong lower back all the way to upper back to hold your positions. You can have a big squat and a weak back, but you cannot have a big pause squat with a weak back. So here's how I use pause squats in an 8-week training program. For the first 4 weeks, we'll build up to a heavy set of 5 pause squats before dropping down by about 10 to 15% for 4 more sets of 5. Each week from weeks 1 through 4, you try and add 5 to 10 pounds to both your top set and drop sets. Then, for the second 4 weeks, we'll continue adding 5 to 10 pounds every single week, but we'll just remove the pause from the equation. That's everything for this video, but if you love Olympic weightlifting and love bodybuilding, then make sure to check out my 8-week OlyBuilding program linked in the description below. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye.